Coming up on Primetime News, Korea's ruling party floor leader Yoo Seong-min resigns, ending 2 weeks of political strife triggered by President Park Geun-hye's veto of a controversial revision to the National Assembly law. Greece's prime minister asks the European Parliament for a new bailout package to keep his country in the eurozone, vowing that Greece will meet its obligations. Plus, a government report predicts the ratio of Korea's population between the ages of 15 to 64 will drop below 50% in 2060, the lowest level among world economies. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Wednesday, July 8th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. The ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Yoo Seong-min has stepped down from his post, accepting the decision of a general meeting.
This comes after 13 days since President Park Geun-hye slammed the ruling party's floor leadership, triggering pressure from the presidential office and Yoo's own party to resign. Park Ji-won starts us off.
In tendering his resignation on Wednesday, Yoo Seong-min apologized to the public for disappointing them and causing confusion within the party. But he said he had stayed in the post to defend the values of a democratic republic, which could be read as a jab at the presidential office and those who had pressured him to step down.
The law, principles, justice, these precious values stemming from Article 1 of the Constitution, which states that Korea is a democratic republic, are what I wanted to protect, even at the risk of my political career.
He resigned after accepting the result of a general meeting on the matter called by the party earlier in the day. Party lawmakers finally reached a consensus after hours of discussion, and the decision was made after a full debate, not a vote, to minimize the potential for further internal conflict. The final call to end the debate was made by party leader Kim Woo-sung.
We've heard enough from our lawmakers at the meeting, and I am now going to inform Yoo Seong-min of the result.
The ruling party's Supreme Council said it had convened a meeting to end the continuing strife between the president and the floor leader. The conflict began when President Park vetoed a revision to the National Assembly Act late last month, which she criticized Yoo for spearheading. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party lambasted the result, calling it a shameful moment in Korea's political history. They blamed the presidential office for the current deadlock at the assembly and for creating the rift within the ruling party. In commenting on Yoo's resignation, presidential office spokesperson Min Kyung-wook expressed a wish for good relations with the ruling party down the road, but declined to comment further. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the main opposition party has reintroduced a bill containing revisions to the National Assembly law, which President Park Geun-hye co-signed back in 1998 when she was a lawmaker.
The opposition party argues the old revisions are not different from the most recent ones, which the president vetoed. The party also named the bill after the president, drawing the ire of the presidential office. In her recent veto, President Park said giving the parliament the power to request changes to government decrees is unconstitutional. South Korea expressed regret over North Korea's threat to cancel a planned visit to Pyongyang by former South Korean First Lady Lee Hee-ho. Seoul's Unification Ministry said today that it will continue to support Lee's trip despite the regime's warning. North Korea's Asia-Pacific Peace Committee, which is involved in talks for Lee's visit, claims that South Korean media is falsely accusing Pyongyang of having political motives in the visit. The widow of President Kim Dae-jung is scheduled to make a 4-day trip to the north from August 5th. More on North Korea. Its leader Kim Jong-un paid tribute to his grandfather and North Korea founder Kim Il-sung on Wednesday to commemorate the 21st anniversary of his death. The state-run Korean Central News Agency said the young leader visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun at midnight, where the late founder was laid to rest in 1994. Kim was accompanied by senior military officials, including Hwang Byung-seo, the director of the General Political Department of the Korean People's Army, and Park Geun-hye, who is believed to be the regime's new defense chief. The anniversary comes amid reports that the young leader's so-called politics of fear is leading to a growing number of defections by mid-ranking officials.
Let's turn our eyes to Japan now. Tensions between Korea and Japan may escalate as Tokyo is looking to go back on its admission that it forced Koreans into slave labor at some of its wartime industrial sites. An official from Japan's foreign ministry told Seoul-based Yonhap News on Wednesday that the expression forced to work in the translation of its statement to the World Heritage Committee does not mean Tokyo acknowledges its use of forced labor. This comes after similar remarks made by Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida shortly after the committee listed Tokyo's wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO sites. Korea and Japan had earlier reached an agreement on the issue following months of negotiations.
On to the latest turn of events in the nation's MERS situation. Korea reported its first MERS deaths in just over a week, meaning the country is not out of the woods yet where the virus is concerned. Kim Hyun-bin gives us the updates.
2 people died from MERS on Wednesday, raising the death toll to 35. The health ministry said Wednesday that 2 people had been in what it deemed a high-risk group. They were the first deaths from the disease in 8 days. One of the deceased was a 50-year-old with a pre-existing condition, while the other was a person in his 70s who was at risk because of his old age. The ministry added that of the 35 deaths from the disease so far, 32 had been elderly people or people with pre-existing conditions such as diabetes and cancer, which apparently worsened because of the virus. On a more positive note, there have been no new infections reported over the past 3 days, leaving the total number of people diagnosed with the disease at 186. Of that, 32 remain hospitalized, while 119 have been discharged following full recoveries. Since the MERS outbreak on May 20th, over 16,500 people have been put into isolation for possible infection. Roughly 15,800 people have been released so far, after not showing any symptoms of the disease during its 14-day incubation period, placing the number of people still under quarantine at 811. MERS was first reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012 and had a fatality rate of 40% until the outbreak in Korea. With the latest deaths, the fatality rate of MERS in Korea has risen to a little less than 19%. There's no vaccine or cure for the disease. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Let us shift gears now. In line with recent predictions, Korea is about to undergo a massive demographic shift in the coming years. Analysts expect to see the population age and its workforce shrink. Our Connie Kim tells us about the possible implications for this country and its economy.
Korea currently has the 27th largest population in the world, but that number is expected to slip to 49th by 2060. Statistics Korea said Wednesday the Korean population, currently at 51 million, will reach its peak in the next 15 years, jumping by about a million. And then it'll decline, going down to as low as 44 million by 2060. The agency expects a portion of the elderly population to increase by more than threefold in the coming years, while the working age population ratio will decrease to nearly 50%. The agency attributes the shift to the chronically low birth rate and rapidly aging society, with experts expressing concern that the decrease in the number of young people will have a negative effect on the workforce.
The decrease in the workforce will dent the country's growth rate. At the same time, it's going to burden the younger generation, as they will have to shoulder the cost of the rise in the aging population.
Similarly, the Hyundai Research Institute predicts a rise in the aging population will cause the growth rate to fall, and it puts the figure in the 0% range by 2060. And to resolve the problem, the Korea Development Institute says society and the government must work together to find ways to support the elderly while seeking new growth engines for the economy. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A new survey shows Koreans would really love to have more children, but having them and raising them is a different story. The financial burden can be too much for some parents, and that's where the government comes in. But are they doing enough? Our Son Jung-in takes a look at the ideals and the harsh realities faced by Koreans who want to have kids.
The Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs released a report on Wednesday on the value of children. It analyzed the result of a survey on more than 18,000 respondents from 8 countries, including the United States, China, Britain, Japan, and Korea. The questions were divided into positive and negative categories, asking respondents to rate their level of agreement on a scale of 1 to 5 on statements related to parents' happiness, social standing, financial burden, and career chances. Koreans showed an ambivalent attitude on the survey, rating highly on both opposing categories. They strongly agreed that watching children grow up was life's greatest joy, with a score of 4.26 points. They also shared the view that having children increases people's social standing in society, with 3.17 points, the second highest following Sweden. However, at the same time, Koreans strongly believe that children were a financial burden and interfered too much with their freedom, recording the third and second highest score respectively among the countries surveyed. Officials at the institute said that while the country's birth rate stands at just 1.24 children per woman, Koreans' ideal number of children was 2.7, meaning they want more kids but are restricted by the financial burden of raising them. The officials added that Korean government should strengthen its measures to lessen the economic burden of child rearing in order to boost the birth rate. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, the International Monetary Fund has urged the U.S. Federal Reserve to not raise its key rate too early. It says there are political and economic issues globally that could hurt U.S. growth, adding that a rise should only come after signs of wage or price inflation. Kim Min-ji has this report.
The IMF has warned the U.S. Federal Reserve to keep its rate increase on hold until next year. In its annual analysis of the U.S. economy, the IMF said a global slowdown in economic growth, together with political and economic upheaval in countries like Greece and Ukraine, could hurt U.S. growth down the road. It said a rate hike should be put off until there are signs of a pickup in wages and inflation. Analysts have forecast a rate increase in September, although recent economic data had watered down expectations.
Many analysts have projected a rate hike in September, but if the Greek debt crisis is not resolved and continues on, it will have a significant impact on Europe and the US. So there's a chance that the Fed could possibly postpone the rate hike.
The IMF suggested holding rates at near zero into the first half of next year, with a gradual increase after that. The Fed has held the rate at near zero since the global financial crisis in 2008. Fed Chairwoman Janet Yellen had earlier signaled the central bank could raise rates in the coming months if the economy was growing steadily. But the world's largest economy only expanded 0.7% in the first quarter, and growth projections for the whole year aren't all that better. The IMF has cut its growth forecast for the U.S. economy to 2.5%, down from April's 3% projection. The OECD has also revised down its outlook to 2%. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The U.S. Army is reportedly planning to reduce the size of its fighting force by 40,000 troops over the next 2 years. USA Today reported on Tuesday that the Army also plans to cut its civilian employees by 17,000. The cut will downsize active duty troops from the current 490,000 to 450,000, the smallest number since 1940. The cost-cutting plan has been on the table for some time, but this is the first time officials have confirmed it will go ahead. An official announcement on the specific units affected could come as early as Thursday. Citing military sources in Washington, Seoul-based Yonhap News says U.S. troop numbers in South Korea will remain the same. Now, the Korean Air Force opened the country's first space monitoring center on Wednesday. The Air Force said the center, located at its headquarters in Gaeryong, Chungcheongnam-do Province, will help Korea better prepare for emergencies in outer space. It will also help the Korean military track satellites operated by other world powers. The center will receive real-time information from the U.S. Strategic Command in charge of space surveillance after the two countries agreed to share the cosmic data last year, September. The surveillance center is part of Korea's plan to beef up its military capabilities in outer space by the year 2040.
Come July 14th, the station you're watching will have reasons to pop the bubbly. Arirang TV will launch a 24-hour news channel at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The global broadcaster has already pre-tested its service on the in-house network just days ahead of its official start. Our Kwon So-wa has the details.
Arirang TV is just a step away from expanding its broadcasting service into another realm. Beginning next week, it'll be the first Korean UN in-house network channel. On Wednesday, a congratulatory event was held at Arirang Tower in Seoul ahead of the official launch.
Without the United Nations, it would have been difficult for South Korea to become independent. As this year marks the 70th anniversary of the UN's founding, it's very meaningful for Arirang TV to become part of its network, representing Korea.
The broadcaster will join around 20 other news channels, including CNN International, BBC World, Al Jazeera, and NHK, and be viewed on screens at the UN headquarters. In this way, Arirang TV will be able to more actively inform UN employees, diplomats, and the international community about Korea's history, foreign policies, inter-Korean issues, and more. The Arirang TV UN channel will differentiate its programming from the existing Arirang TV world, putting greater focus on news and current affairs. A special launching program will kick off on July 14th at 10 a.m. in New York or 11 p.m. in Seoul. Kwon So-wa, Arirang News.
Arirang on UN in-house network.
For a look at the top international headlines, we now connect to our Lee Sun-ho at the News Center.
Our focus today: Greece agrees to seek reforms by Thursday. China's jittery stock market takes a plunge, and Iran nuclear talks continue.
Sun-ho, let's start off in Greece. What exactly did the country's prime minister say to the EU Parliament about its reform proposal?
Well, guys, just hours ago, Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras told the EU that his country will continue to work on reforms to come up with some type of measure to keep his nation from exiting the Eurobloc. Now, this comes as the EU pressured Greece with an ultimatum on Sunday. For details, let's turn to our Han Da-eun.
Greece's eurozone partners have called a full European Union summit on Sunday while giving Greece an ultimatum. Come up with a concrete reform proposal by Thursday or risk the alternative, bankruptcy or a possible exit from the eurozone. The move came as Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras showed up to a eurozone summit held in Brussels on Tuesday without a new aid proposal, disappointing the already skeptical eurozone partners. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, before and after the meeting, reiterated that Greece still has not met the basic requirements for further negotiations. She also made clear that she won't write down any of its debts.
The challenge for Sunday will be to see if the conditions are in place for taking up negotiations. Yes or no, no more, no less. There definitely won't be a haircut. This would be a bailout in the currency union, and this is not allowed.
Sunday's meeting could decide the debt-ridden country's fate, as the EU leaders of 28 nations are expected to make a final decision on whether to approve a third bailout for Greece based on its new proposal. The Greek leader sounded rather upbeat after Tuesday's meeting and said that the discussion had taken place in a positive climate. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, who has sought to keep Greece in the euro, was more cautious.
The Commission is prepared for everything. We have a Grexit scenario prepared in detail. we have a scenario as far as humanitarian aid is concerned, and we have, and that's the scenario I most prefer, a scenario how to deal with the problem now, keeping Greece as a member of the euro area. I'm strongly against Brexit, but I can't prevent it if the Greek government is not doing what we are expecting the Greek government to do.
Greek banks remain closed while capital controls are still in place, and experts say the emergency measures are likely to last longer than what the Greek government has previously announced. Handan, Arirang News.
And it was another hectic day for the stock market in China as more than 500 countries desperately froze shares to prevent a massive sell-off. Now, this means that around 50% or half of the market has stopped trading. To make matters even worse, the securities regulator in Beijing confessed that investors are in panic mode. The Shanghai Composite dropped 8% during the opening hours, and what are economists saying? The situation is bad.
It's very bad. It could potentially get a lot worse. I don't see anything that says it's going to stabilize near term. And in fact, I think all the gains that we've seen in the stock market since this bull market began last summer can be given back. Effectively, within 12 months, we can reach for the sky and come crashing all the way back down to earth again.
It all began with global oil prices dropping 15% earlier in the day, and as Asian shares slipped to a new low in 1.5 years. The situation in China sent ripples across Asia, including South Korea, where the benchmark Kospi fell nearly 1.2%. And finally, talks regarding Iran's nuclear issue are set to continue for a couple more days as negotiations enter its hardest phase. EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said major powers are doing their best to work with Iran.
We are continuing to negotiate for the next couple of days. This does not mean we are extending our deadline. So it's a window that we are using at the maximum, but we are not closing the window and then opening another window at another time. We are using the time now.
Mogherini has denied rumors that talks would be extended yet again, emphasizing the fact that ministers are using their time that they have now. She also claimed that the deadline could be dealt with in a more flexible manner to give more time to finalize the deal. And that does it for your international news today. I'll see you again tomorrow.
The light showers continue to fall over some parts of the peninsula even at this hour, and heavier rain should pick up again overnight for Gangwon-do, Chungcheong-do provinces and other southern regions. The wet weather should clear up by late tomorrow afternoon, but for Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, it will be partly sunny skies. In fact, the Seoul will not see any rain until Sunday. So summer conditions are expected for the capital on Thursday, with temperatures hitting the 30, but down south regions will remain cool and breezy, with highs only peaking at mid-20s. And now taking a closer look at tomorrow's temperatures elsewhere. Daegu and Gwangju should peak at 25 and 28, while Busan top out at 24. And as for the other parts, it seems like Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 27 and 26, while Dokdo rises to 22. Now, for those of you in the southern regions, have an umbrella handy before heading out. And if you're in the capital area, be sure to grab the sunblock. Well, that's all for Korea. And here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Always soothing to just stare at something green. Well, that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Please join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.